Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world, announcing our wife over the middle of the night. I'm Jake Mintz, that's Jordan Shusterman, and neither of us have secret wives until now.
No. We've actually been pretty public about our respective marriages and or engagements. I got married last summer. You were there. You were a witness. There were a lot of people there. A lot of people knew about it. It was not necessarily a secret that I posted on Instagram. We are, of course, going to talk about Shohei Ohtani's big announcement, always finding ways to stay in the news. God bless that man. But that is not going to be our first topic because this is ostensibly a baseball podcast, and we do have some baseball topics to talk about on this fine Friday, and I'm excited to do that as well.
I am excited to talk about the baseball topics, yes. But I am mostly excited to talk about Ohtani going, my wife.
Yes, we will. But it is Friday. We're rolling, man. This whole baseball barbacast thing, you can't stop us now. I mean, this 3 times a week situation is such a pleasure to have back in my life, and I'm glad too that again, this is the kind of show I think that will really cover the range of baseball barbacast passions. We are going to dig into Yoshinobu Yamamoto's StatCast data, which was, I guess, secret, but then became public. We are going to talk about the travesty that is spring training games not being televised, sometimes being televised and whatnot. And then, as you said, we have to talk about Shohei's wife, who is a normal Japanese woman. But Jake, I want to start with his teammate. I want to start with Yoshinobu Yamamoto because he is something novel. He is something new. He is an actual new character in our universe, for as much as we like to pretend, or a lot of the national media is pretending like Shohei Ohtani is in our lives for the first time. When he hits that home run against the White Sox the other day, it's like, I've seen that before. It's like, I know what that looks like. This introduction of Yamamoto, even in a spring training context, seeing him in a Dodgers uniform, pitching over a couple innings, felt different, felt special, felt like I was seeing something for the first time, and that's because we were. And I know this is a pitcher that fascinates you, he fascinates me, and I think we should really take a moment to appreciate what we might be about to witness with him in his first year as a Dodger.
12-year, $325 million, plus a $50 million posting fee for a guy who had never thrown a single pitch in the major leagues. And I think it was rational for people to see that dynamic and be confused and aghast and have skepticism if that quote was worth it. Mm-hmm. I think he is going to be as worth it as any $325 million pitcher whose value rests solely upon a flimsy elbow ligament can possibly be, because his raw stuff is flat out elite. And it's not just the stuff, it is how it comes out of his hand and how it gets from the mound to the plate. And I think the hardcore ballheads among us had watched quite a bit of Yamamoto video from his time in Japan, from his time in the WBC, but it's a different experience to see that on a spring training mound, to see it with an MLB camera, to see it in an MLB uniform. And my first takeaway before we get to the data, his motion is wild, right? It looks like he's falling over with his straight leg. He's not getting to like full leg lift, and then out of nowhere, he explodes towards the plate and the ball flies out of his hand at 95 miles an hour. It's a remarkable thing to see.
Yeah, and especially when you contrast it, I do want to kind of spin this forward to comparing it to some of the other Japanese pitchers, we've had come over with a lot of hype. But, a lot of the deliveries of guys like Darvish, Tanaka, Kikuchi, they're much more deliberate, right? You have a leg lift, you have kind of a balance, and it's a very gradual, build up and then the explosion. Whereas this, to your point, he's kind of just like sidestepping forward and it's almost jarring. And then to see the ball explode, I mean, this is the other thing. He ain't a big dude. It's not just the height. It's just the overall build is just not very intimidating. and yet it just absolutely explodes out of his hand. The fastball you could see against even a guy like Marcus Semien, against a guy like Wyatt Langford, like it clearly was jumping. But then you talk about the depth of the arsenal. You talk about the splitter. We've seen so many Japanese pitchers come over and have incredible splitters. The slow curveball, that's really something that I'm fascinated to see how much he's able to work that in against big league bats, because that's a pitch that we've kind of seen die out at the major league level as far as his swing and miss offering and guys actually using it. And then of course he still has, slider and cutter, and we're going to see all those things. But the whole thing, and the most important part about it, the reason why it's so special is the command, the intent. And that's something that I talked to top prospect Dalton Rushing about. He told me a story about catching one of his bullpens. And this was even in LA. This is like before they even got to spring training, and how like apologetic he was when he would miss his spot by, half an inch. It's like, no, dude, it's fine. Like, you're going to be okay, even if you're throwing 97 miles an hour there. And it's just so impressive. His athleticism and just the grace with which he moves and all the pitches kind of work together is really exciting.
Immediately must see TV, right? Every start.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to kind of bring up the comparison to Darvish in particular. And people kind of pointed this out. I think someone made the note yesterday that it's possible we're going to get Yamamoto versus Darvish in Korea, either in the first or second game of the season. And I do think that as we think about expectations for Yamamoto this season, we think back to Yu Darvish, who also came over, age 25 season, and came over with a ton of hype, who at the time was considered, the best pitcher that Japan ever had. And just thinking about what those seasons were like. And I'm looking at the seasons that Darvish had, 12, 13, and 14, when he was an all-star all 3 years. And I'm thinking, this is over those 3 seasons. He had a 3.27 ERA, 545 innings, 680 strikeouts. And I'm like, man, if Yamamoto does that, I will be blown away, Yeah. I think, but so then what is different? What is different and what is the same, between him and Darvish? Darvish was, of course, much more physical, but the stuff, particularly, now his way was much more of the breaking balls than the splitters. And of course, Yamamoto maybe has more heat, but it is just a reminder that, like, while he has the biggest contract ever, he got double what Darvish got or whatever, the standard's pretty high here. And we had this. Darvish lived up to it in every sense. And it's a high bar for Yamamoto, but I really do think he can do it as well.
I think the biggest difference between Darvish and Yamamoto is what we know about pitching now that we didn't know a decade ago. And I mean that specifically in terms of fastball shape. I think I've talked about this in the podcast before, but for most of baseball history, we could really only measure how hard the ball was being thrown. And velocity is not the only thing about a fastball's trajectory to the plate that matters to a hitter. What we've learned recently is this idea called vertical movement, which is how much does the ball stay on plane and fight back against gravity in its journey from hand to glove, okay? Examples of this, like Spencer Strider, right? His ball stays on plane. Other ways to describe that: ride, life, giddy up, which is my favorite. The fastball's got real giddy up. And Yamamoto has that. Now, he has, I would say, above average to very good life. What makes it elite, what makes the shape of the fastball elite, is that it's coming from a low release point. And that is because Yamamoto is relatively short for a pitcher, and because he gets down the mound very well. And so what it looks like to a hitter is that the fastball is almost rising, okay? And that is why, even though it's, quote, only 95, it plays beyond 95. And you could see that in his first outing, particularly in the fastball he blew by Marcus Semien to strike him out, which was just in the strike zone, and Semien swung right under it.
And again, though, when you compare, the depth of the arsenal is where the comparisons with Darvish, who also kind of came over with a slow curveball and maybe de-emphasized that a little bit more. The difference, though, is the command, right? I mean, Darvish, even when he was dominating at that point, was still walking 3 or 4 guys per 9. And I would be shocked if, Yamamoto comes anywhere near that number. Maybe the strikeouts aren't quite that as high. But man, I just think that is where the numbers are really going to excel. On top of the fact, he's going to be in a better ballpark. We'll see about the defense, but I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited to watch him kind of figure things out as he goes, and just watch his athleticism kind of on display. It is a really unique watch. And I know it's like, for some people, it's like, oh, he's on the Dodgers too. This is exhausting. I would be overjoyed to watch this guy on any team. I mean, I think he's going to be must watch no matter what.
I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Mm-hmm.
Which MLB starters would you rather have than Yamamoto for 2024 only? Who would you take over him just for this season?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the list it's like fewer than 10 pitchers. I really do think.
I think it might be fewer than that. Okay. So the shoo-ins, tell me if you disagree. Garrett Cole.
Yep.
Spencer Strider.
Yep.
Zach Wheeler.
Yep. Are you running out of names already? Yeah. I mean, I think when you're talking about, I think one of the other big questions with him is going to be the bulk, right? It is going to be the how many innings are really going to expect him to throw. I think you could still throw Burns in there. I think from a bulk perspective, you could throw Logan Webb in there. But then, I mean, you're talking about I think it's less than 10. You got Gossman, Luis Castillo, has a combination of bulk and strikeouts, but
Pablo Lopez and Zach Gallen, maybe.
Yep.
But like, I would take Yamamoto over Nola, Snell, Framber Valdez, Sonny Gray.
I'll definitely take him over Snell because Snell
doesn't have a baseball team. Yeah. My point here is because of the data that we have had on this guy, that the Dodgers had on this guy, right? We all felt better about projecting him against big league hitters than we could in the past with other guys because of the fastball shape. And that's part of why I'm so bullish on him moving forward. Now, again, he could not adjust. The ball could be weird, but everything looked correct in his first outing in spring training. And we talked in the last episode, what are things you can deduce from spring training that are real? Okay. The data, the velocity, the vertical movement, the slider spin and movement on Yamamoto's pitches looked normal and fine with the new baseball, and that is certainly notable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's not even just about like seeing what he did in 2 innings. There's just so much, reason to be confident. Now, again, he threw 193 innings in 2021 and 2022. Of course, that's just pitching once a week and not every 5 days. So there's going to be some adjustments there. But from a pure talent standpoint, I'm excited to see how good he can be. And I'm also excited to see what doesn't work, because that we're not going to find it. There are going to be things that don't work for him. Maybe it is that slow curveball. Maybe there is a pitch that doesn't necessarily translate quite as much. And we're going to find that out. But I really do think and understand why so many teams were willing to. Remember, the Dodgers ended up with him. There were a lot of teams willing to give him $300 million. And that is, I think, an important thing to remember as we move forward with him.
And how will his stuff change once he unveils Secret Wife?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know Yamamoto's marital status, but that could really be unlocking something moving forward. We'll see.
Let's pivot to another player making the leap from Asia to the States, Jung Hoo Lee, who's coming over from the KBO, from the Kiwoom Heroes, who got a nice, hefty deal from the San Francisco Giants, 4 years, I believe.
Oh, it was more than that, right?
It's more than that.
Oh yeah, his contract was probably, again, Boris in terms
6
of like
years. 6 years.
Yeah, it was 6 years, 113, which I think at the start of the offseason, people were like, oh, maybe he could, he's certainly going to get more than Ha-Seong Kim, but were we talking 5 for 90? He's a younger free agent, so you could imagine it being a longer deal. But for him to get 113 million guaranteed, when we have such a small track record of KBO hitters, coming over in general, not even just coming over to succeeding, just coming over in general, it's a much smaller list. I think shows how he was considered a super duper top prospect, probably the most accomplished and high upside, talent we've seen coming over, at least offensively, from Korea. And we wanted to talk about him because, again, moments in spring training that matter. He hit a home run yesterday with a 110 mile an hour exit velocity. And the exit velocity is something that, while people can roll their eyes at it and say, oh, this doesn't matter, this is launch, that is a demonstrated physical skill that, if, shown, that is something that you can say, okay, that is in there, that is in the tank. And when, for Jung Hoo Lee in particular, the question has been, how will the game power translate in the major leagues? For him to already show that he can hit a ball 110 over the fence is is significant. Now, does that mean he's going to do that 30 times this year and he's going to hit 30 homers in San Francisco? Probably not. But that is a physical demonstration of something that we, didn't know for sure and didn't know if that was going to be something that would be part of his game. And I said on Wednesday, when we talked about Soler, the most important part about this Giants having success this year is Jung Hoo Lee's transition to the league and being a good hitter right away. And these are little glimpses, but it's pretty promising so far.
Here's some players who did not hit a ball 110 last year. Willie Adames, Matt McLean, Jose Altuve, Chas McCormick, Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott. Okay, so it's not the be-all, end-all. You could be a good, valuable player and not hit a ball 110. What I'm trying to convey is the biggest worry people had about Jung Hoo Lee was, does he have the physicality to hit the baseball that hard in the big leagues? And now we know he has 110 in his muscularity. Like Jordan and I, with no amount of training, it is impossible for our bones and ligaments to make a baseball go that fast. Okay. Jung Hoo Lee can do it. Yeah. And that is notable.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you combine that with, again, the overall profile, which is, exceptional contact ability, plate discipline, and hopefully good center field defense, you can understand why there is a lot of excitement for him. So again, now the other thing though, I don't know if you saw this, but objectively hilarious StatCast outcome, which was that the home run that he hit at Salt River, it shows you how many ballparks it's a home run in. It was every ballpark except for Oracle, which is objectively hilarious. But again, listen, we know that, this does not mean I'm projecting him to hit 30 home runs, but it was a good sign. And I'm really excited about this guy. And I think for a Giants fan base that is looking for anything to get excited about, he could become an absolute star there very, very, very quickly.
Convince me I'm wrong, and we'll get to this on season preview stuff. I think I've talked myself into the Giants being interesting. Maybe not good, but sneaky watchable compared to where I thought they would be at the beginning of the winter.
I think that's a fair assessment.
They don't get a banner for that. I mean, they don't get sneaky watchable rings.
No, not even close. I think I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, they're dealing with some pitching injuries, some really scary news about Tristan Beck dealing with an aneurysm that is affecting him, and he's going to be out for a while. We know Keaton Wynn was shut down. They need to sign Snell or Montgomery. I mean, and I still feel like there's a good chance they will. But I agree, from watchability standpoint, they've made massive, massive strides just with the offseason that they've had. Because even Jordan Hicks, do I think he's actually going to be able to start? Not really. Am I excited to watch it? Absolutely. So sure. Works.
So we're talking a lot about spring training action, which is a good transition to our next topic. Is it possible to consume spring training action? Now, Jordan, you have brought to the table some research about how many spring training games are televised and how many spring training games are not. During the regular season, every regular season game is on television in some form. Whether or not you can watch it in your local market is a different situation. They are all being recorded by cameras and have people talking about them through your headphones. That is true. However, that is not the case in spring training. Jordan, please explain me like I'm 5.
Well, so the reason this became a particular topic yesterday was because the Pirates and Orioles were facing off, and we had a parade of number 1 picks. Paul Skeens was facing off against, I guess, Corbin Burns, who was not number 1 pick, but that's a pretty cool pitching matchup. Jackson Holliday was playing for the Orioles, as was Adley Rutschman. Henry Davis, who homered off Corbin Burns. By the way, just side note, it is really remarkable that the last 6 first-round picks or first overall picks have been Pirates, Orioles, and Tigers. I think the lottery will start to get some variety here. But when I saw all those, I was like, wow, that is very strange. But anyway, everyone freaks out and says, oh my gosh, how is this not on television? Not putting Burns and Skeens on television is a travesty, is a choice. What is wrong with the league? And my first thought to that is, I would like to watch that as well. Duh. The second, but I want to have a more practical conversation about this because
really, I don't
I'm sorry. I apologize. We're going to get pretty impractical when we start making jokes later about Ohtani's wife. So
my wife.
Okay. So why is this the case, right? The first thing to obviously point out is that the spring training broadcast schedule from a television standpoint was decided months ago. They are not in a situation where it's like Skeens and Burns are on TV tomorrow. We gotta broadcast it. Like that's not.
Someone
not
get a camera.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Now at the same time, it's 2024. You can broadcast games in alternative ways. We've seen the Mariners this spring get creative and broadcast games with a radio simulcast on their website for free. You don't even need MLB TV to watch those games. So that tells us that it actually is possible to broadcast games if teams want to put the effort in, even on short notice. So in that sense, it is, of course, technologically possible. But from a television standpoint, they're not like the schedule is the schedule. Now, however, the issue is that the schedule for all these different teams is wildly variant. And you have a situation where there are most teams, in fact, are televising between 5 and 10 games in the spring. The most games that any team is televising this spring is the Angels with 26. Now, their channel, Yahoo Sports West, is televising 26 games. The Cubs are doing 25. Blue Jays, Dodgers, 18, Phillies, Red Sox, Yankees, 15, and so on. But there are a lot of teams that are doing 3. The Padres, the Nationals, 3 games. The A's, of course, only 1. D-backs, Reds, Giants, Brewers, only 4.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The A's are broadcasting one spring training game?
Yes, they are. From what I can tell, they are broadcasting one spring training game. Now, there is a great graphic from an account I've come to really enjoy at TJ Stats, Thomas Nestico, who tweeted about how many games are televised on MLB TV. So basically, like if the A's are playing the Dodgers and the Dodgers are televising it and you're an A's fan, you get to watch that, right? So the A's have 11 games that are being broadcast. But from what I can tell, they are only broadcasting 1. And so you just have this huge range of accessibility for these teams that just seems kind of totally random and just at the whims of these television stations and of these teams and broadcasters. And that's obviously frustrating. Now, when you combine that with the other element of how we consume baseball in 2024, which is the StatCast component of it, which is the information, the data that we are getting during games. And as far as people like us are concerned, that's what we really care about, because we want to know how hard guys are throwing, how hard guys are hitting the ball. And for whatever reason, we have a massive imbalance in terms of where the StatCast is enabled for public data, where it's like most of the parks in Florida and only 1 in Arizona. So you have a situation where teams like the Reds and the Mariners have like 2 games in StatCast ballparks for all of spring, right, and the Yankees have every single game where we have data for everything. And it's just random. And it's just like the inconsistency there is, I think, frustrating and hard for fans to totally wrap their minds around. And I totally get that. It is frustrating because it's like, yeah, in theory, we should be able to broadcast these things. But where do you stand on how important it is?
Let me start with the StatCast thing. That's frustrating because that data exists.
Yeah.
We know that. Like, we have this Yamamoto data that came out through Lance Bertzkowski. Like, that exists. Teams could just turn that on. It's just not being filtered through the StatCast stuff, right? For all we know, Hunter Green could throw a pitch 135 miles an hour. If a tree falls in a forest, doesn't make a sound.
Right.
And that's what is frustrating to me. Now, what is odd about this is that spring training is, in a lot of ways, an advertisement. It is an amuse-bouche, okay? It is an appetizer for the real main course of the season. However, it doesn't hit if you can't watch it. And it's not just watching the games live, because personally, and we've talked about this, I don't like watching spring training games before the 4th inning. There's no intensity. It doesn't feel real to me. However, if there are no broadcasts, there are no highlights in a lot of cases. Now, teams like this Jung Hoo Lee homer, right? That was not on a broadcast. There is open angle video of him, but I want all the angles. I want a real broadcast footage, right? And the idea that we don't have that is certainly frustrating. Now, you made a point to me yesterday that I thought was hilarious, and it is that no spring training games should be broadcast, except for one a day. Can you explain this thought?
This is very much a half-baked take. And then I want to round out with a little bit more of a rational opinion on the matter.
We should start a segment. Can we start a segment every week called Half-Baked Take?
This is, again, like we've sort of been honest about where we stand on watching spring training, because to your point, and we'll get back to this, the highlights are great. Like I'm happy to watch, James Wood launch a home run for the third time in 4 days or whatever. Like that sounds great. Do I want to watch a whole Nationals Cardinals game? No. Basically under any circumstance whatsoever in the month of February. Like that's just not what I want to do. So again, we'll get back around. But I do kind of like the idea of just like, if we, again, because it's so unpredictable, and that's what seems to be driving fans nuts, is that like when it is televised and we do get highlights of the games, no one's like, oh, thank God this is It's like, okay, yeah, duh, of course it's televised. So I think having one game where it's like we were all watching one thing, because I like to say that that's the most fun part about the postseason, is that we're all watching the same game and we're all tweeting about the same game. So if there was only one game a day that we got to actively watch, I think that would kind of balance out the appetite and keep it a little bit more casual and make opening day that much more special, when on March 28th we can watch 15 games at once, and like that would really feel a lot more special, I think. Again, you've spoken about the secret offseason before,
right? Where we don't know what teams players are on until they show up to spring training. This is like the secret preseason.
Yeah, it's like, and again, it's like either you go to Arizona, Florida, or you just have to, like, you ban cell phones in the stadiums.
Oh, so like a Chappelle stand-up show, like they put them in the bags.
You can't put them in a bag, so that like there's no evidence of anything that's actually going on. So that when Corbin Burns unleashes his new ethos, we won't see it until opening day. You just hear about it. There's just no video. Now let me get back to a real take about this and why this is actually a problem. Right? Is that what also makes baseball special is that there is so damn much of it. There's so much baseball. Oh my God, there's so much baseball, right? And we are lucky to have that. There is just, regardless of, you could say, oh, there's too many games and whether that is necessary for the balance of the season and the health of the players, whatever. But from a pure fan and content standpoint, having a bajillion baseball games is a treat. That's something that we have more than any other sport, right? And so when you have even more games that are happening in February and March, where there are highlights happening regardless, because again, a highlight can occur in a game that does not mean anything. A highlight that will get 3,000 retweets and 1 million views can occur in an exhibition game between major league players. And if you're not going to show those, you are just leaving stuff on the table. And that it's really that simple. If you want to grow the game and you want more people to know who these players are, this is a whole month of games and action and baseball players doing baseball things that you are just actively not having shown. Now, again, who is making that decision? It's not Rob Manfred. Let's be very clear about that. Like these individual broadcast decisions, it's not just about the commissioner. However, if you are the commissioner and you want to prioritize growing the game and whatnot, these are decisions, these are things that probably can be emphasized and prioritized to clubs, to broadcast partners, and so on. And so that is why I totally understand where fans stand.
Jordan, thank you for both a half-baked and a reasonable take on the matter. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we will talk about marriage. And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast, Jake Mintz and Jordan Shusterman. Okay. The news erupting across the baseball world and the nation of Japan this week is that Shohei Ohtani announced that he is married. Jordan, I'm going to kick it to you for the facts and the points and the play-by-play here, and then we will talk about it because this is a podcast.
In the middle of the night here on this continent, on, I guess, Wednesday night into Thursday, Shohei Ohtani posted on his Instagram page, the same Instagram page that, a few months ago, he simply posted a photo of the Dodgers logo. And that is how we found out he is on the Dodgers now. He posted a graphic with an announcement in Japanese text, but then also this caption in English. To all my friends and fans throughout, I have an announcement to make. Not only have I began a new chapter in my career with the Dodgers, but I also have begun a new life with someone from my native country of Japan who is very special to me, and I wanted everyone to know I am now married. I am excited for what is to come. Thank you for your support.
So my first thing, just quickly,
yes,
I'm getting married in September. Oh my God, I can't wait to tweet a picture of me and my then wife at the wedding with this exact caption.
No. Well, yes, you should do that. Then I will remind you to do that. But again, this is, I think let's start with why this is so shocking and interesting. Okay. Cause again, speculating on Shohei Ohtani's personal life has been something that has already been happening because he is so private. But this is not something that really anybody was thinking or talking or asking him about, right? This was not his dog. Right? When he revealed his dog and we were all like, oh my God, where did the dog come from? What's the dog's name? How long has he had the dog? All these things, right? Like that became a story.
Yes. I would like to push back on that. If there was footage of him accepting the MVP award with a woman in his lap, okay, we would have asked, what's her name? Why was there a woman next to you? Like, it was just the reason that we asked about the dog is because the dog was there. Okay.
No, I understand that. But again, this was not something that was on our radar. And so that's what made it more interesting. He felt like he was, but I think that seems to be part of the motivation to share it, which is that he is saying, this is something that is important to me that happened to me. And that I do not want this to be a thing during the season. And so I am just going to say, yeah, I am now married. And then on Thursday, he spoke to reporters and people had to ask him and be like, so how about that Instagram post where you said you got married? Would you like to tell us more? And he shared a few details. He said, this is a woman in Japan who he's known for a few years. And it sounds like he also said that they are now living together and that she was supportive of his decision to join the Dodgers and whatnot. He did not specify exactly when they got married.
Let me comment on that.
Yeah.
She was supportive of his decision to join the Dodgers. That's a hilarious nugget to me because the timeline where she's like, you gotta go to the Reds, and like Shohei reveals that, right? Like, I love her so much. She's living with me. She really wanted me to play for the Giants.
Yeah.
But we talked
it out. We talked it out. The question, or I believe his comment on this, she has a great quote. She has a great understanding of my profession and she's willing to be wherever I wanted to play. And ultimately, it was my decision. He also said, I felt like it was good timing because it was before the season. I didn't really want any distractions once the season started. I would have liked to announce it earlier, but there were some paperwork issues that delayed the whole process. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of insight that this is seemingly something that has been in the works. When did he get married? Whatever. Now let's get to the fun speculation. First of all, it's his life. I'm happy for him. Congratulations, Shohei. All the obvious things, right? Okay.
Yeah. The other thing that's worth noting is in the English language post, he did not say wife. He just said he was married. However, if you translate the Japanese, it translates to wife. So I know that there were some people online saying he never said wife. He did not say wife in English. He did say wife in Japanese. So I think that is worth noting.
Yes. And then, of course, later, the clarification, the quote, at least through Ippei, that kind of made the rounds was, quote, she is a Japanese woman. I don't really feel comfortable talking about when I got married exactly, but she's a normal Japanese woman. Now, this seems to be a response specifically to the notion that, is this somebody who is famous and thus, like, can we poke around and find out who this is and thus ask about her? But it seems like he's trying to clarify, do not bother this civilian who I happen to get married to, which is great. I love that move from Shohei. And obviously this is someone who values privacy and will continue to value privacy. But it does make me wonder, like, him announcing this, I mean, I do wonder if we're going to see her at some point. And how could we not?
We will learn her name at some point. Not that I'm going to be researching it, I'll tell you, but it'll come out.
Now, the one part I really want to dig into here is the secrecy component. Okay, there's two parts about this that I really wanted to get into. And there was a quote from Dave Roberts about this because they're like, hey, Dave, did you get him a wedding gift or a marriage gift? And Dave Roberts said, I'm very happy for him and his bride. As far as wedding gifts, we got surprised and didn't have much time to think about it. Okay, now we get into the real speculation here, which was how many human beings on Earth knew that Shohei Ohtani was married before yesterday? Because this king of secrecy was able to do this, was able to seemingly have some sort of relationship for a while, and get married officially, right? Like it seems like he is legally married. I assume here, maybe in Japan. I don't know exactly, where the paperwork is filed.
He's the most recognizable and famous person in the 11th largest country in the world.
He's right. Like this is an incredible achievement of privacy and secrecy that he is now choosing to share, because I'm thinking like, why couldn't he have just stayed? Why couldn't this have stayed a secret? Like, I don't know. Like he had some motivation of sharing this.
No, because the longer it drags on, the more likely it is that it gets out. And then it's like, why did you keep this a secret? That is then a bizarre question. Japan, sorry, correction. Japan is the 12th largest country in the world, not the 11th. That's
wow.
Jake Mintz regrets the error. But your question is so good. How many people knew about Ohtani being married before Wednesday? Okay, here's who knew for sure, right? Ohtani.
Yep.
Ohtani's wife.
Yeah, that's two.
Probably Ippei.
I feel really good that Ippei knew. Yeah, I feel good that Ippei knew.
I'm going to say Nez Balello knew.
Okay.
His agent at CAA.
I think Ippei, by the way, I believe is married. I believe Ippei probably told his wife as well.
Okay, so that's 5 people.
We're up to 5.
Did Nez Balello tell any? I think there are other people at CAA had to have known, because if there was paperwork, there were lawyers. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add 3 people.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to add 3 people in the agency who knew about Ohtani wife. And I think that brings the number to 8 people. Ohtani's parents.
Yes.
That's 10 people.
Yes. I believe Ohtani has a sibling also. I think one sibling. I believe an older sister. I could be wrong about that. I believe he has one sibling. So I'm gonna add Ohtani immediate family. We of course have no way to know about his wife's family's size and scope.
But I feel comfortable adding at minimum 2. 2 wife family know about marriage.
Okay. So then we get to the question, which is combined to the next question.
So sorry, that's 13. That's 13.
Okay. The next question of anybody on the Angels or Dodgers know about this?
No chance, Lance, because anybody he tells on a baseball team is telling their significant other, and then that is just getting out into the world. What do you think? You think he's just like on the bench one day, just shooting the breeze with Mickey Moniak and shows like, yo, Mick,
well, right. So again, it does seem like this happened at some point in the offseason, but we don't know for sure. Like again, we know he was in Japan at some point this offseason, but maybe didn't have in Japan, whatever. There's so many different questions still. I think you're right. I think there's no way anyone within the Dodgers organization had any idea. But he was pretty tight with some people with the Angels. Like
no chance.
Maybe he told, Max Stassi that he was going to be getting married. Like, because think about it this way.
I have another one.
I just want to say, think about it this way. Yeah. Like, on the one hand, yes, like if you are in Ohtani's inner circle and he tells you yes, we've been with the same significant other. Yeah, we tell our significant other things. That's the normal human thing to do. And I guess that could expand it to 2. However, you're also like, if you are in Ohtani's inner circle and you have that trust, that's a big burden. And also like, you might be like, okay, this is my secret to keep. Oh my God, Ohtani shared something about his personal life. Like this is mine. So I don't know. I think, I don't know. I can't guarantee it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I am very skeptical again that nobody who is a major league baseball player knew about this other than Shohei Ohtani. That is my belief. Okay. I would like to add Hiroshi Sasaki to the list of people who knew. Ohtani's coach, his high school baseball coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I would guess.
Ooh, what about the Samurai Japan man?
The Samurai
who was
Japan
there, also
coach.
His coach in NPB. I believe is Kuriyama. I believe.
Yeah, Kuriyama.
Hideki
Kuriyama. Actually, I don't know about a high school coach. I'm going to take the high school coach back.
I think Hideki Kuriyama is more likely than the high school coach.
Yeah. Okay, so let's add Kuriyama We don't know. Okay, so Kuriyama's 14.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to add 3 more because if there was paperwork to be
Three
done.
more wild cards.
3 more wild cards. That to me is, there's paperwork. So there's paperwork I think would probably be to get Ohtani's wife a visa or some sort of status to live legally in the United States. Okay. That is what my understanding is for the paperwork. So I would say that's 1 person in Japan. That's 1 person in the United States at minimum. And then 1 person who had to do the marriage certificate. Okay. So that's up to 17. And then I'm going to go ahead and add whoever officiated the wedding.
Okay. That was the last part
18.
about this, is I wanted to get to the wedding component, because that is a thing we also do not know if that is a thing that happened, right? And by the way, from a real thing, like having just got married 6 months ago, I hope he either gets to have a wedding or had a wedding, because weddings are cool and fun and nice and like an incredible celebration of love and the people that you care about and they care about you. And if he doesn't have the opportunity to do that, like that bums me out. I hope he gets to do that at some point.
So our rough count is at 18. And I think that if he did have a wedding, there are probably, like, if you're doing a wedding, there are more people who know, right? There are more people at that wedding. You're not doing a wedding, I guess, for 4 people. So we're at 18. I feel comfortable taking that number to 25. Okay. And I think
I'm feeling like I feel like I'm smashing the under on 25.
You would take the under on 25? I would take the over on 25.
The last thing, I'm just so glad you bring up the marriage certificate. Of course, having gone through this process, going into like the city office, and especially, again, we don't know if this was formalized in Japan or if it was in Southern California or Anaheim or something. But just the idea of the person whose job it is to again the people who come in, and essentially you go in and you say, this is a very funny process, and I guess you will do this or have done this or whatever soon.
I did it because I have a domestic partnership.
Domestic partnership. Okay, so you go in and the best part is they say they basically make you say, like, are you sober? They're like, we're not gonna sign these documents if you are inebriated or whatever. But and then they also ask you, how many times have you been married before? That's a good question. And I remember when I went,
Shohei's like 1 to the game.
But again, I'm just imagining that person, sitting at the desk at that government job, and Ohtani walks in with his wife, and especially if you're like in Anaheim, right? And you're just like is this? And then like that person just having to hang on to that information is just absolutely sensational. So anyway, I'm sure we've gone on way too long about this, but I'm sure you can forgive us.
Shohei, drop the registry, dude. Like, I'll buy you a vacuum.
Yeah, you want a cake plate? Like, I got you covered, bro. I know you've deferred $680 million. So, like, listen, you need some new linens? Would you like an air fryer? That's been huge for me and my wife since we've been married. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm sure he could use.
Jordan, I got you Kiddush cups.
Yes.
Which I don't think Ohtani has on his registry.
Probably not.
But let us know. Send us an email, baseballbarbacast, BARBcast @gmail.com, or tweet at us. How many people knew Shohei Ohtani was married before he posted on Instagram?
Yes.
I am taking the over on 25. Jordan is taking the under on 25. Should we introduce producer Brett? Do you have, if you want to hop on, do you have a thought for how many people knew?
25 and a half is the official line.
I'm going to go under on this one as well. It was just so secret.
Thank you. Validation. Yeah. But if you think we're forgetting anybody or like a category of person, baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Let us know. All right. Let us move on. And by the way, again, it was funny because after we finished on Wednesday, I was like, I'm excited. After Yamamoto threw, I was like, great, I'm excited to talk about Yamamoto. Like, we'll do an Ohtani-less episode. Like, that's fine. We can move on. And then he's like, oh, by the way, guys, I'm married. I was like, all right, well, we're going to do 20 minutes on that.
Could you imagine if Ohtani had posted like a meme of Borat that just said my wife, and like that was the picture on Instagram and everything else was the same? Oh,
I love it. Congrats, Shohei. We are happy for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
congrats.
Jake, a few more quick topics. One, let's begin with another photo that made the rounds or on Instagram, another Instagram post that made the rounds. And it was of Yadier Molina wearing a Cubs pullover and a Cubs hat. people were freaking out about this because, oh my God, Yadier Molina, the Cardinal legend, how dare he ever sport the logo of their biggest rival, even in retirement. What a disgrace. By the way, Yadier Molina, like part of the Cardinals coaching staff now, like
I know,
still in the Cardinals organization. What is wrong with him? And Jake, there's a very simple answer, but what were your thoughts when you saw this picture?
It's payback for Wilson Contreras.
Oh my God. That is a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, honestly, right. Like how it's the same thing. Like, here, check this out. No, the answer is very simple. For those who are reading too much into this for any reason, his son is on a travel ball team that's called the Cubs. And so if you go to his Instagram, you can see his son wearing all kinds of Cubs stuff and him wearing all kinds of Cubs stuff. And he seems to be fine with that. So not that complicated, but it is a funny picture.
I think that is an understandable explanation, yet also an unacceptable one. Because if you are Yadier Molina and you have enough money to fund 4 million travel ball teams, you pay to change the name to the Cardinals. It costs what? Maybe $800 for all the uniforms, right?
Probably, yeah.
If I'm Yachty and my son is on the Cubs, I do something about that, right?
Yeah.
And Jordan, I should bring this up. When I was younger, I despised the New York Yankees. I was put on the Yankees, okay? And I had my mom sew a red X over the Yankee logo on my Little League hat, and then sew not the above the Yankees on the shirt, okay? And this is some dumb 8-year-old kid and not a top 10 legendary player in franchise history.
True.
All right.
True.
And so I understand this is why I do not accept it. I think Yachty knows better. And like, it could be any team name in the world. They could be the Shoes. Mm-hmm. They could be, the celery stalks. Mm-hmm. They could be anything. And they're the Cubs. Okay. Come on now.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think if he wanted to do something about it, he probably could. So fair criticism of a Cardinals legend. Jake, I wanted to talk about a tweet from the Vegas Golden Knights.
That's hockey?
They tweeted a highlight of a goal scored by somebody named Paul Cotter on their team. This is the defending NHL champs, Stanley Cup.
Where do we
champs,
think
Vegas
Paul
Golden
Cotter's
Knights.
from? Like Saskatchewan? Let's see.
You can tell me. You can do some Paul Cotter Googling. But they tweeted a very cool goal. Basically, it was the puck was up in the air. They were in Boston and playing against the Bruins. And the puck was up in the air, and Paul Cotter just kind of slapped it into the goal, like basically smashed it out of midair, kind of like a swing, a baseball swing. He hit the ball, He hit the puck into the net. And the Vegas Golden Knights tweeted this highlight and captioned it, "Channeling his inner Rafael Devers with a baseball emoji." And I just saw this, and when this came across the timeline, I was like, what is happening? I was certainly confused before I watched the highlight. But even after the fact, I was like, what is this? Why would you say this at Golden Knights? I guess it is like a shot at the Bruins, at Boston, being like, haha, we hit a home run against your team. It's just very strange. But
yeah, first
of all, my first takeaway was the response that just absolutely killed me. From Maddie responded, "Only thing I could think of this meaning is Boston playing horrible defense." That's good. Good tweet.
That's a good joke.
That was funny. But the other thing I was thinking, I was like, Vegas, like you're in theory going to have a baseball team too. Like you got to start hyping up your own guys. Like you guys.
So that's my point. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say like, it's also weird look because this goal made it 3-1
right.
with Vegas losing. And so it's
and
like,
they lost
okay.
this game. Yeah.
And they lost this game. Yeah. I think the tweet should be, if you want to do a baseball joke, we're amenable to that as a baseball community. This did not hit. And a good version of a tweet would be, the A's aren't even here yet, and we're hitting home runs. Right?
We're hitting home runs. Boom, boom. Now, obviously, that would make more sense
tweet.
For a home game, but I totally agree. Like, if you want to embrace your new baseball team that may or may not be coming, that would be a way to do it.
And now you're making this gentleman, Paul Cotter, who producer Brett tells us is from Michigan and not Saskatchewan. You're making that man carry the burden of a Rafael Devers hate tweet on his shoulders for the rest of his life. And he certainly doesn't deserve that one bit. One more topic before we get out of here. Jordan Shusterman.
Yeah.
You hung out with Ken Griffey Jr. As one does.
Yeah, sort of. So
who among us has not hung out with Ken Griffey Jr.?
Listen, it was certainly not necessarily the plan, but I did publish a story at Yahoo Sports yesterday talking about my experience at the Topps house. Topps, of course, the baseball cards. They had a kind of a special house out in Scottsdale, Arizona during spring training. Over the course of a week, kind of leading up to the games, where prospects and young players could kind of come hang out with each other and get a haircut and eat a bunch of fancy food, and just like it was a cool spot, and sign their rookie cards, because an underrated kind of absurd task that young baseball players have to do and often get compensated for is signing thousands and thousands of cards.
We did this once.
In fact, we even did this. We were fortunate enough to have a set of cards in the Allen Ginter set, which is kind of here are some interesting people around baseball that get to have a baseball card. But I believe we only signed like 200 or 250. These guys are signing literally thousands. This is different for every player and different for every set. But the point is that part of this special week and promotion is the day I was there, Ken Griffey Jr. was also there, because Ken Griffey Jr. was taking photos for a special set of Topps coming out later this year as kind of a follow-up to a set that they did last year where Randy Johnson, who was also, Jake is showing our card. It's still hilarious that we have that. They are coming out with a special set again, Ken Griffey Jr. photographing some of these young players for a special set of Topps cards. And so getting to watch Jackson Chourio and Kyle Harrison and Bryce Terang, Ethan Salas, Nolan Shanuel, Sal Frelick, these guys basically show up and be like, hey, we're going to take some photos. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. I'm just following directions. And then they're like, oh yeah, Ken Griffey Jr. is going to take them. They're like, oh, okay. Cool. Was an incredibly cool experience. And I was lucky enough to talk to Griffey afterward about it. I mean, he is very into photography now. The whole time he was basically bragging about this trip to Kenya he just went on. He's showing everybody these incredible photos he took. I included one of them of a photo of an elephant that he took in the story. But he was showing these incredible, this like hot air balloon over Mount Kilimanjaro, and like a hyena like eating a wildebeest over the course of 2 hours. Like it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts.
That is a great, Jordan, just one second. Yeah. We talk about moments that like our lives in this sport are what we never thought they'd be. And I think Ken Griffey Jr. airdropping you a photo.
Yes. Yeah.
From Kenya is very much in that category.
And yes, you sort of jumped ahead, but that specific moment where I was like, hey, like, could I get one of these photos for the story? Like, it's fine if you say no. And he's like, yeah, no problem. And I was just going to like take a picture of his phone, like with my phone, of like him holding his phone with the picture. But he's like, oh, no, let me just airdrop it to you. And like, I was like, oh yeah, sure. And I was like praying, airdrop can be kind of finicky. So I was like, please work. I was like, I was already holding up this photo shoot. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Thankfully, the technology worked for me.
Did it say Ken Griffey Jr.'s iPhone would like to send you a photo? Approve, deny?
It was like, no, but like the caption, like again, because like it has like the metadata, it was like the caption of like the picture of the elephant was like Swingman Africa or something. Like it was
amazing.
So anyway, it was again, those are the kinds of experiences that we know how fortunate we are to get to have. So shouts out to Topps for having me out. Shouts out to Griffey. Shouts out to Griffey's agent, Brian Goldberg, incredible guy who's been with Griffey since he was like 15. He was very helpful in kind of making all that happen. So you can go check out that story on Yahoo Sports, some other fun details in there, but obviously an experience I wanted to share on the podcast. So thanks for giving me that opportunity. All right, Jake, it's Friday. We should end this podcast. Before we get to an hour, we went a little bit over an hour on our first 2 episodes. We want to keep it under, so we are going to stop talking. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Let us know how many people knew about Shohei Ohtani being married before yesterday. Thank you to Brett Rader for producing this episode. And we will be back on Monday. Will Ohtani give us more to talk about, or will we finally talk about other stuff? I guess you'll have to see. Any final words, Jake Mintz?
Ohtani secret kid drops next week? ? Talk to you all on Monday.